Welcome back, everybody. Another week. What are we, 3 or 4 more weeks until the election? Everyone should have gotten their ballots and voter guides. Today, we are going over Proposition 20 and Proposition 21 and San Francisco Proposition F. I won't dive too deep into it. I'll just say Proposition 20 is the title is it restricts parole for certain offenses currently considered to be nonviolent. It authorizes felony sentences for certain offenses currently treated as misdemeanors.
So some background info. They define felony as the most severe type of crime. The state law defines some felonies as violent or serious or a combination of both. And so they have kind of gave some examples. Violent and serious felonies include murder, robbery, and rape. Those that aren't defined as violent or serious felonies include human trafficking and selling drugs. And so for felonies, there are two ways sentencing happens. The one way is through state prison, which is for people who have current or past convictions, which includes serious, violent, or sex crimes. And then there is county jail and or community supervision, which is for people who have no current or past convictions for serious, violent, or sex crimes. And then they also define misdemeanors, which is a less severe crime. These include assault and public drunkenness. So sentencing for misdemeanors include two ways. There's misdemeanor sentencing, which an individual can be sentenced to, that's supposed to be county jail, county community supervision, a fine, or a form of all three. This is usually punished. People that get misdemeanor sentencing are people who generally are punished less than people convicted of felonies. And there's also wobbler sentencing, which is crimes that can be categorized as either a felony or a misdemeanor, which includes identity theft. And this decision is made based on specific of the crimes and the person's criminal history. So what does Prop 20 do? It amends several criminal sentencing and supervision laws that were passed between 2011 through 2016, and this includes Prop 57, which was passed in 2016. This changes the state law to increase criminal penalties for some theft-related crimes. It established two additional types of crimes in the state code as wobblers, such as serial crimes and organized retail crimes. It allows some existing theft-related crimes that were punished as misdemeanors to be now punished as felonies. It changes how people are released from state prison and how they are supervised in the community. This also removes chance for parole for some criminals who are charged with the newly designated violent crimes. And it requires the state and local law enforcement to collect DNA from adults convicted of certain crimes to help prevent and solve future crimes. So what are the fiscal impacts? The first one is it increases state and local correctional costs likely in the tens of millions of dollars annually, primarily related to increases in county jail populations and levels of community supervision. Second, it increases state and local court-related costs of that could be more than several $1,000,000 annually. And third, it increases state and local law enforcement costs, not likely to be more than a few $1,000,000 annually related to collecting and processing DNA samples. Voting yes would mean that it supports this initiative to add crimes to the list of violent felonies for which early parole is restricted. It recategorizes certain types of theft and fraud crimes as wobblers and requires DNA collection for certain demeanors. Voting no would mean that you are opposing this initiative to add crimes to the list of violent felonies for which early parole is restricted, and the latter of recategorizing certain types of theft and fraud crimes as wobblers and not requiring DNA collection for certain demeanors. And so we're going to move on to arguments in favor of Prop 20, and take it away, Wesley.
Let's see. So one of the arguments in favor of Prop 20 is that will be correcting or changing certain crimes to be sentenced heavier. So previous crimes that were labeled as non-violent will be now charged as violent. These crimes include stuff like child trafficking or domestic violence. Those already imprisoned will have their charges changed to reflect this if it passes. Next, please. And then another argument would be victim rehab in prison and also victim protection. This prop will change the way parole is granted by creating more restrictions and hoops to jump through before they're allowed outside. Thus, this allows for more protection not only for the victims, but also longer access to counseling, anger management, and other rehab programs for the criminal. And the last one, it requires DNA, or this prop will change to also include misdemeanors as part of the DNA collection. Right now, it's only for adults arrested for or charged with of a felony, youth who have committed felonies, and also people required to register as sex offenders or arsonists. This prop will change it so that for certain misdemeanors, you're also required to register or have your DNA sampled. And that's all for me.
Hello. So I'm going to go over the, the arguments against Prop 20. Okay, so we got a thing going on sort of in the country, and it's called the prison industrial complex. And there are a lot of, there are a lot of for-profit prisons in the state of California that are just like using inmates kind of for free and cheap labor, and that's not cool. They have an economic incentive to make more crimes more punishable for longer periods of time, to get rid of parole so that they can have more people in prison for longer so they can use them for whatever they want to use them for. And, regardless of whatever these people did previously, I don't think that's cool, man. I don't think you should fight fire with fire. I think that's inhumane. Yeah, next argument. Oh, did it not update? Sorry.
Yeah, something happened to me too.
Yeah, argument 3 was like, I was in the wrong position. I don't know if it because I just also updated some other slides too. So I hope those got put in. But anyways, okay, so yeah, I mean, like a lot of people who are in prison, like they have mental health issues. And, we used to have things called sanatoriums in the state of California, and they were horrible, but they were where everybody who had mental health problems went. People in white lab coats would like pop out of the bushes and haul you away if you were acting crazy in the middle of the street. And then I think when Reagan was governor, he got rid of those because they were a disgrace. But there wasn't really any sort of effort to replace them with anything more humane. So there were a lot of crazy people who got taken out of these institutions, but they were not like helped in any way. They were just sort of, hey, have at it. Here, you're good now. See ya. So I don't know if you notice a lot of people walking around who are kind of a little bit off their rocker, but back in the day, back in the 50s, they would have been thrown into an institution. And these days, those institutions don't exist. But what do we have? We have prisons. And if any of these crazy people do actually, cross the line and commit a crime, then they're going to end up in a prison, and they're pretty much going to stay in that prison for a long time, which makes it harder for other criminals who do want to rehabilitate. It's going to make them harder to actually be in a firm state of mind and to get acclimated to society once again. And there should be more of an effort to service the people who are in need or in prison. And this prop does nothing to help that. It just crowds the prisons with more people. Yeah. Next argument. Okay. So, this proposition will also strengthen the link between poor and disenfranchised people, who are disproportionately put into prisons for small crimes. like a non-violent, all sort of theft crimes. I looked it up in the text. It's like any sort of theft, even something really small, will be considered violent, which means that if they get put in prison, then they might not be, it will be considered a violent crime and it will not be eligible for parole. So parole is kind of like our only tool that we have in the toolbox for rehabilitation right now, is in my estimation. We don't really do much for people in prison because, they're in prison. Screw them. But parole is the one thing that they have to look forward to if they've committed a crime that isn't like, I don't know, cutting people up and eating them. It's like you have a chance. If you behave yourself, you have a chance to get out and get back into society. And you'll still have to look over your shoulder and like report to whoever while you're on parole, but you can like try to build back, a life, and that's the incentive that Proposition 20 takes away. So if somebody who was on track to be paroled suddenly is not on track to be paroled, what do you think they're going to do when they're in prison? What do they have to look forward to? So, I mean, I think they're more likely to just get caught up in the rat race in prison, caught up in all these gangs and whatnot, and to be radicalized and stuff. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And then let me see, does the next slide have that figure on it? No, okay. I don't know, am I allowed to share my screen?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen and then you can share your screen.
Okay, cool. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the primary argument in favor of Prop 20 is basically this sort of baseline, sort of like, hey man, crime is like pretty crazy. There's a lot of crime, but from this chart, you can see that like crime levels are actually going down for the most part recently. And so over here we have crime in the 1960s, and this is like per capita. So per 100,000 residents, this is how many property crimes are committed over the decades, over the years. And this is how many violent crimes are committed over the decades, over the years. You can see this huge spike, and then there were like a lot of laws that were put into place around the 80s and whatnot in order to respond to those, in order to respond to this huge spike. There are a lot of like 3 strikes laws. There's a 3 strikes law that's still in place in California, where if you commit 3 felonies, the 3rd felony like automatically gets you like a huge amount of prison time. Like 3 strikes, you're in prison for basically the rest of your life. So that's still in place, right? And then Prop 20 will make it so that you're more likely to be committing a felony because it turns certain misdemeanors into warblers or whatever. And yeah, so, also the Supreme Court not too long ago was like, hey man, state of California, you guys have too many prisoners. That's cruel and unusual. So do something about it. And we did do a lot of things about it. There were 2 other propositions that were, enacted in order to reduce the population in prisons and stuff. And this Proposition 20 is trying to reverse that without any clear sense of why, because it's not like crime went up substantially. So yeah, those are my arguments. I'll stop sharing. I don't know if anybody was asking questions in the chat. Okay.
Good discussion in the chat. You're missing.
Oh man.
All right.
Yeah.
Does that conclude your presentation?
There were like rebuttal arguments and whatnot. I don't know, Wesley, if you want to do rebuttals to the arguments.
Let's bring them up if it comes up. Let's get into our discussion. How do
Can I
people
ask you a
feel about
question
this?
really
Like,
quick?
yeah,
How did this prop get into the ballot?
great question. Does it tell us?
I think there was a Republican state assembly member who was like, "Hey man, put this in," because yeah. Well, I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, I'm
It
not
says
sure
on-
either.
Let's do some research.
I like so many questions. Like, it raises a lot more questions than it answers.
Yeah.
So essentially, this proposition makes it stricter, right?
Yes.
So
It doesn't necessarily
it's like-
make anything Like it doesn't create more crimes. It just makes the crimes that are already on the books. A lot of them are misdemeanors. It turns them into felonies, or it turns them into violent crimes. Which
So if it's violent, does that mean like you're not eligible for parole at all?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you're convicted with like a violent crime offense, and you go to prison for a violent crime as opposed to a non-violent offense, then it makes it really, really hard for you to get parole.
Huh.
I think.
It says this ballot was put on, it was put on the ballot by petition signatures. So I'm guessing a group of people all signed a petition for this bill.
Also, Albertson Safeway supports Prop 20, if that sways anybody.
Yeah, like
if you are pro
shoplifters.
How many people do you need for a petition to get on ballot or to make it a ballot or prop? Is it like 2,000 people, 20,000 people?
I think it's a pretty low threshold. It's a relatively low threshold, which is why so many ballot measures make it onto the ballot. I think it's like 100,000. I'm not sure. 100,000 signatures. Yeah.
I mean, are you guys swayed on voting yes for this or the other way?
No, man.
I'm a bit confused because like the short form is kind of like, it's already confusing, and then after doing research into this, it's even more confusing because like we've mentioned that it recategorizes crimes, and some of the crimes that they're trying to recategorize is kind of like should it be like redefined as a felony? And so it's kind of like what is your definition and things like that, which is kind of odd.
Yeah, from what I heard, like I think crime is actually going up in the last few months in the Bay Area. But does that mean we have to bring down the hammer on people?
I mean, was that in correlation with like the protest though? Sorry.
No, it wasn't the protest. It was burglaries and like robberies and stuff like that.
Because like nobody's watching the storefronts.
Yeah. I heard it's more like COVID related than like protest related because like more people are home and so they can't watch over the cars. They can't watch over like their stores, like things like that. So it's kind of like no one's watching me. So some people might feel that they can pull off more crimes like that.
Like I need to see a bunch of data before I like decide. Like, is it actually a huge problem where people are like serial theft, people that constantly are being convicted for stealing more than $250? Is it like a huge epidemic of crime?
Yeah, people be stealing my stuff all the time, dude.
That's true.
I think that man deserves a felony. Fuck that guy.
Where are you putting your stuff, Carbo?
Yeah, Carbo has a story.
This is constantly happening to you.
Bro, I order stuff online and then this guy just walks by and just looks up my stairs and just steals my box.
Wait, but Amazon just gives you another one or gives you your money back or both.
Yeah, I know, but it wasn't from Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I mean, the guy was a freaking drug addict, huh? I mean,
yeah,
like
bro, he's just drug addict, dude.
Carbo caught the.
Wait, did they catch him?
Yeah, I found out where he lived and everything.
Oh my god! And then what? Did you send him like threatening letters?
I just filed the police report.
You turn it to Liam Neeson.
I don't know if the police are gonna do anything about it, but I filed a police report.
True.
Should we TP his house on Halloween?
Yeah, something like that.
Wait, how did you like talk to the guy's roommate?
I just found out like because he only took 20 seconds to walk from my house to round trip, and then he lived 10 seconds that way. So I just walked over 10 seconds. I rang the doorbell, and the girl was like, "Hey," I was like, "You know this guy?" He's like, "Yeah, like, he lives in the garage." And I was like, "He stole my
what'd you
stuff."
tell him? Can you tell him to stop stealing my stuff, please?
I was like, I already called the cops. I already filed a police report. And can you please call them and corroborate my story? She's like, all right. She hasn't done shit yet.
I mean, he's probably paying her rent, and she.
What if she's
probably
in
doesn't
on it?
Kick anybody out.
Yo, that's what I'm saying. What if she's in on it and like they're gonna get me one day and they're crazy?
Yeah.
They might shoot
Watch
me.
your back, Carbo.
Where are you at, Carbo?
I'm in Sunset.
Can't you? You have a camera, right? Why don't you just show them your footage?
Yeah, I did. I gave everything to the police. And then the officers, all right, we'll see what we can do.
Well, just hope they do something then.
Maybe you should ask your other neighbors.
I
I'm
don't
trying
think
to
the
find
lack
out
of
who else he
evidence is
stole
the
from.
problem. It's just that it's gonna take time.
All
And a
right,
few more
let's
packages.
get on with Proposition 21. Let's try to keep the presentation under 10 minutes.
Wait. I still want to know what do
Yes.
people think about this bill or this prop.
I need to like research a lot of crap.
I'm leaning towards a no
Mm.
because I think being like hard on crime, like didn't we try that already? And like wasn't like the last year, well, at least in SF, I feel like in SF we like shut down the jail. No, sorry, we shut down the juvenile hall. And we're really trying to moving away from like being harsh, using like harsh punishment as a way to dissuade people to commit more crimes. So I think I'm like leaning towards a no, because there are alternatives to just harsh punishment. For example, giving these people more resources in terms of like a therapist or something, or like a community you mandate community
Do rehabs even
volunteer
work?
stuff.
Was that?
Do rehabs even work?
In theory, they
They
do.
could. They
I mean,
could.
like, yeah, they could, but I haven't looked it up or anything, so I don't know if are there like studies about.
I
Well,
don't
you work
think
in
other
there's a
countries,
lot
it's
of.
not
I know
America.
what doesn't work in terms of like rehabilitating somebody. Sending them to prison doesn't work.
But
Yeah.
if they're in prison, they can't do more crime.
Yeah, technically they
Doesn't
can
work.
because like I've read that a lot of people in prison get like radicalized, and then like doesn't that affect like the
True.
community? Like even if they are released, like then they could go out and like radicalize more people, and so that's definitely more dangerous in the long run.
That's true.
And I was just looking at like who is putting money in for and against, and it looks like those that are supporting it are kind of like law enforcement and Albertson, and then those that are against it are like the ACLUs and like Equality, Crime Survivor for Safety and Justice. And so it's kind of interesting to see who is putting money in and against for this.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards a no too, but I'm also kind of like on the flip side, they're trying to change it so that they're going to charge sex offenders or child trafficking, and also non-violent crimes into violent crimes, stuff like that, to be charged more seriously. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But then they're doing the same thing with petty theft. So I don't know.
You guys
They're
know
like
before
sneakily
they-
trying to add too much.
That's like with all of this, like it does a lot of things.
I mean, before they changed the definition of crime though and felonies, that was like in a ballot 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was recent. It's like 2014.
I don't know if it was that long ago.
Wait, it doesn't say right here. Prop 57, it made a lot of offenses.
To 2016.
Oh,
There's
16.
one in 2016 and
Yeah.
one in 2011-ish.
It was the most recent one, but it was saying like they changed everything to less to more of a minor offense because they wanted less people in jail, because then they would reassess everyone that was put in for like marijuana use or like small things. But this is like trying to reverse it, so it's sort of weird to do it, because it was a big thing when I was at drill, because we were talking about it, because it would release a lot of people that like they're trying to change back in this bill to put them in jail.
So you're saying
I don't know
we'll
if you-
put people back in jail that were released?
Well, not like they're probably
It would keep them in jail for longer.
Uh,
I don't know if they're released already or whatever, but it would it'd make it easier to just put people in jail again, you know. And if they're a
Mhm.
repeat offender and if they get caught for something small, they would just because it follows history. They said it follows the history of past crimes, right?
yeah.
So I
You
don't
know
know.
what's
I probably
hard?
wouldn't know because
But-
it seems dumb to add all this. Some things I agree with, but a lot of stuff I don't.
Mm. I mean, especially in San Francisco, there's the conversation about being soft on crime is it's pretty nuanced too, because I'm sure you guys heard, at least in the Asian American community, like there's this crime on Asian Americans, and I just saw a thing recently where it's like it was on Market Street. I don't know if you guys read the story where there was like a scuffle. This was like last week. It was on the weekend, and there was like a scuffle. Like
Oh, yes.
a group of young men wanted to rob some dude. They fought. Guy took a gun from the young man and like killed the robber. And it turns out that guy had like a whole bunch of different ongoing cases in different counties. So there's probably a maybe small population of people that maybe can't be rehabilitated, and if for those people you probably want to keep them away from society. And then at the same time in San Francisco, the DA is taking a lot of flack for not prosecuting a lot of crime. So I don't know. It's
But he can't really prosecute them for crime anymore.
we're definitely haven't figured this out yet. What's that?
I mean, isn't it harder to prosecute them based off what got passed in 2016 or whatever?
Well, we'd have to go into specifically what passed in 2016. So I don't know.
From what I can see,
I need to do a lot more reading on this stuff.
from what I see, like Proposition 57 was passed in 2016, and it increased parole chances for felons convicted of non-violent crimes as defined in state law. Gave them more opportunities to earn sentence reduction. So basically, like, I think Prop 20 doesn't necessarily reverse Prop 57, but it makes more crimes violent crimes so that they're not helped by Prop 57. So basically, like, I think Prop 57.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with that. Like if it's a violent crime, that's no bueno. But all right, closing comments. We have to move on to. Alrighty, let's get it. Prop 21, rent control.